Mr. Nayogi, over to you.
Thanks very much. Hi, morning everyone. Sorry, apologies for the delay. I think we're running late by 10 minutes. I guess we're waiting for the hall to fill up. But I'm told that, people will kind of start trooping in. And let's hope that we get more people, gets nice and comfy inside the hall. So, welcoming you all formally here. Pleasure to be hosting this panel. And I think it's an interesting panel how brands are making experiences seamless for consumers. So I think all of us, if we step into our consumer shoes, see that, we as consumers experience this seamless sort of connectivity across devices, across platforms, across channels. There is no strict offline, there's no strict online. We are jumping channels, jumping platforms, and brands are following us. So I think that's the story of our lives. We are leaving our footprints behind everywhere. And brands essentially are leveraging technologies effectively to kind of offer us a great wow experience all the time. I mean, consider this, right? I mean, as shoppers, you walk into your favorite, let's say, retail mall or your retail outlet, and you're here on your mobile phone. You get beacons which tell you, what's on offer. What are some of the things that you bought last time? What is it that you did with the Facebook page or on the social channels of the brand? And accordingly, some great offers are coming your way on the smartphone. And then, of course, you have experiences where, let's say, the sales staff is pinged immediately and seamlessly, and a person is right there waiting for you, trying to talk to you about products that you typically have a liking for. So there's your data available, your analytics are available, everything is put together in a stack, and you have a wonderful experience, being offered to you as a consumer. So I think great times for consumers, great times for brands, and obviously great time for marketing technologists and enablers who are kind of pretty much driving this change. So we have a great Power Pack panel, as you can see. We have Vasant, we have Cameron from Tune, we have Nomit from Geoni, and we have Thomas here. I'd just request each one of them to start introducing themselves briefly before we jump into this conversation, please.
Okay, hi guys. I'm Vasant. I look after marketing at IBM, and I'm these days trying to really understand, rather explore everything that artificial intelligence can do for marketing.
My name is Cameron. I work for Tune. We have two different products, one that's focused on marketers, and it's a complete marketing stack for them to manage their attribution with their paid advertising, their organic acquisition through the App Store, then also focusing on in-app engagement and email channels. The other product is built for the supply side partners, so the agencies, ad networks, and affiliate networks that help drive the traffic and user engagement at the top of the funnel.
Hi, I'm Nomit. I work for Geoni and I take care of the marketing piece over there. So technically we are in the industry which is the most important screen for the consumers right now. So what we try to deliver is the best experience in that screen from a product point of view, and we also tie up with partners where we can better that experience across the screen. So this becomes a very, very important piece for us.
Hey, hi. Is it working? Oh, great. So hi, I'm Thomas. I work for Trivago, which is a hotel meta search that hopefully all of you have seen, at least on TV. I'm responsible for performance marketing globally and also for marketing technology, which means I'm looking after all the paid marketing channels that are happening in the digital space. Plus, I look into technologies that we can use to attribute these things that help us to make our daily life easier, that help us to know what people are doing, and where we also make decisions. Do we build this technology in-house? Do we use external technologies to empower what we're doing in-house? And yeah, that's what I do.
Thanks, Thomas. Okay, before we jump into the discussion, just a quick show of hands. How many marketers here in the audience? And how many technology enablers and, sort of agencies here? So, okay, so more number of marketers. And how many believe that they are actually doing a great job in terms of providing a seamless experience for their respective consumers? So Gurmeet there, I think, believes that, Yahoo, and that's about it, right? So that makes it even more exciting, right? So I think I'd start with you, Vasant. Given the fact that IBM pretty much has been really on the forefront of analytics, the famous Watson projects, and so on and so forth. So why don't you share with us, today, that if there were one or two brands that you really admire, one or two brands which, are role models besides your own, of course, who are doing, according to you, a great job of offering a seamless experience for consumers?
Yeah, thanks, Subhanshu. So, folks, there's one brand And this is something that has always fascinated me, which is when we talk about brands and marketing, our first sort of reaction is always to think about another brand that is marketed. What I'm going to talk about really is actually a sporting brand, because I do believe that some of the best marketing in this world actually comes from, you know, what people do in sports, what people do in films, whether it's Bollywood or Hollywood. So the example that I'm actually going to take is Wimbledon. It's no surprise that IBM does all the work for Wimbledon, so there's a story in there. But so so, so if you look at a tournament like Wimbledon, right? It's a small, sleepy tennis club, which for 50 weeks of the year, literally nothing much happens, right? A bunch of folks go there, private club, play tennis. But for 2 weeks a year, there's like high powered action. And when you think about it, there are multiple audiences, whether these are people in the stadium, across the various courts. So you're talking about 500,000 odd people there. You've got people watching on television. You've got people obviously increasingly following stuff on the mobile devices, and interestingly also on desktop, because in a large part of the world, when the Wimbledon games have been played, people are actually at work. So the interesting thing about Wimbledon is not about how they have made the experience seamless across these screens. What I found interesting is when Wimbledon started with a mission statement for themselves. And the mission statement was, we need to be the greatest tennis sporting tournament in the world. But then, for the customer experience, obviously, you put together a great show for the people who come there. It's easy to do it for your live action audience. But then what they did was they went ahead and actually crafted out a mission statement for their uh, you know digital experiences. And the mission statement for the digital experience was the next best thing to being there, right? Now, when you look at something like that, I'm sure there are many cricket fans in this room. And I know many of us follow the game on Cricinfo. The Cricinfo experience is a very text experience with just the scores coming up and down. When you put yourself a target saying the best experience, the next best experience to being live at Wimbledon, you can't just have a text experience, right? So you need to then create a very visual experience even on your mobile devices. You need to create a very visual experience even on your desktop devices. So the way the Wimbledon experience has been crafted, and you go to wimbledon.com, now if you go to wimbledon.com, you'll start to appreciate how they have crafted their experience. The other thing that Wimbledon did very smartly, as opposed to people who do cricket, was to actually own all the data. And we'll talk about this a little later. But Wimbledon owns all the data, and they analyze the data so that whether it's ESPN or BBC which is doing the commentary, whether it's the experience on the mobile devices for a fan who wants to go back and check, they're providing very rich content, or indeed these days about social media analytics to identify who are the influencers, who are the people who are trending, what are the latest breaking stories. So for example, people might be focused on a match that is happening in the center court, but you know what, there's a record that somebody has broken in court number 7. How do I pick that story and amplify that story and then build storylines around that? So there's a fascinating half an hour presentation on this on YouTube on a channel called Think Digital. I would urge anyone who is interested in marketing and mobile screens to actually go through it. It's very well worth the time and effort. I think for me it's a gold standard in what marketers can achieve. And if you want to do any of this, come to IBM.
Thanks, Vasant. I think that's a brilliant example. I think when we talk of brands, we usually talk about service brands and we talk about product brands. But I think here is a great example of how an event as a brand, as an experience, is seamless across screens, offline and online, right? So, and we have, of course, lingering memories of strawberry and cream for those of us who visited the UK in the summers. So thanks, Vasant. I think interesting perspective, and we'd love to kind of go and have a look at that video. At least I'm going to definitely look at that. Cameron, how about you? I mean, at Tune, if you were to kind of just share with the audience, what is it that you guys are doing, and how is it that you guys are kind of enabling brands, agencies, as I hear from you, to offer seamless experiences across screens, online, offline, and so on and so forth? You want to share a couple of perspectives on that?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing from a technology perspective is if you're going to go cross screen is you need to have a system of record that's people centric. People that I think that's like the first thing that you have to overcome from a strategy is how are you going to identify that user when they're on their phone, when they're on their TV, and then also like when they get into their car. And so we've seen some amazing companies like Starbucks that have leveraged cross screen, but then also cross channel. Using geofencing to identify when you're close to a Starbucks store so they can prompt you to place a mobile order so your coffee's actually there at the pickup counter. So you've already paid for it, you've already put your order in, you literally just walk into the store and grab it. I think that entertainment is another really interesting example on how people are going cross-screen and then also using those different channels. Spotify, from a consumer standpoint, Spotify, which is a music streaming app, has absolutely nailed the cross-screen engagement, and they can actually do it across so many different channel partners. We were talking a little bit about Netflix as well. So I could be watching House of Cards on my phone and then walk in and then actually go into my TV, and my cable provider actually has a Netflix app integrated into it. So I can pick up that show exactly where I left off. What they're doing is they're using my account ID as a system of record and making sure I'm getting the right content when I'm actually going from one place to another. And that's the most important thing to stay engaged. The consumers, in my opinion, are just expecting to have that kind of experience. We're in 2017 now. They want the content in the way that they want, when they want it, and in the framework that they want it.
So. Well, absolutely, and I think consumers, all of us agree that consumers are getting more demanding, and you don't really have a choice but to actually play catch up because the consumers already a couple of steps ahead of what brands are. I mean, of course, there are some brands who are doing a great job in terms of offering this, some who are learning the ropes, and yet still who are kind of pretty much grappling with what to do and what not to do. I think different brands are at different stages of evolution. Before we come to you, Nomit, I think I'd request Thomas to share his perspectives from a Trivago context and some global examples of what Trivago is doing. And also, as the other two gentlemen said, who would be really your gold standard in terms of, an aspirational model for offering a seamless consumer experience globally?
So let me probably first of all talk about what we do, what challenges we face, and, and how we try to make things happen for us. So I think the question you asked in the beginning, where you said how many people in here think they do a really great experience or they offer a great experience to their customers, I also couldn't raise my hand because that's one of the problems. So we're not one of these Netflix companies where we have a unique identifier and can say, we can connect the dots easily between each other. So we're working with the big ones. We're working with Google. We're working with Facebook.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of local companies here in India, a lot of companies all around the world where, we can collect a lot of data. And the big problem is that we're not able to connect the dots between that data, which then brings it back to the user experience where we can say, hey, someone starting the journey on the phone searching for a hotel in Delhi, this user wants to probably connect that and work on its desktop later on and say, okay, now I want to book that. But he has to do another search on desktop because we're not able to connect the dots on there as we don't have a unique identifier. And then we also have some marketing data on Facebook advertising where we probably advertise you daily on your mobile, but something completely different on a desktop. So in connecting all of these dots, I think is the biggest issue that we have and the biggest thing that we have to solve in the future, which probably goes back to CRM system, but without the big companies that are available in the world, it's nothing that we can solve, I guess. But something I want to solve and something I'm actively working on for us as a company, but also then for other companies to share that and make this happen. Okay. Asking me about if there's someone who's doing it really well, I don't know. I think Facebook is really, really good in that, but they also have a unique identifier. So all the companies that have this as an identifier, they use it. They make huge profits with it. But it's also their USP and their advantage. That's why they're not sharing. And best case, find all these companies that have identifiers, group them together, make them available for all of us, and then the problem would be solved.
Great. Nomit, you're the screen yourself, as you rightly said when you were introducing yourself, right? So I think you can really share with the audience in terms of how your category is evolving, and highly competitive category, ladies and gentlemen, and you're number 4 in India right now. So as a consumer brand, as a fast growing consumer brand, you also have a strong offline connect with your consumers, right? So I'm going to exceed the brief with the permission of the organizers here a little, where, we are going to say that, how are brands experiencing seamless experiences, not just across screen, but also the online one and the offline one. In your situation, how is it that you're connecting the offline consumers with online, or the offline experience with the online experience, and vice versa? Can you share a few examples, and what is it that you're doing?
So we operate as a retail brand,
Right.
okay, which is available online also. And in our category also, where we have got competition which is only online available. So this is a very very complex category. But what is it, that there is a very big, you know impact of the online on the offline and the offline on the online marketing piece which is there. So if you look at it, there is a complete part to purchase of a product. So where this is the primary screen for any user. So when they go to buy that screen, they do a lot of research which goes online. So before you make a purchase, so there are enough amount of reviews which are read, enough amount of information which is there, and then and the most reliable source for getting the product price and all is still is the company website, because you still believe that this will be the most trusted site for the information, not for picking up the product. But what happens over there when we push the consumers to pick up a product over there? So we have got two options over there. One, that the consumer, if the consumer really want to have a touch and feel of the product, I need to give him the product experience. So I need to send him to the retail store where the product is available. He can take a demo, he can experience the screen, he can do the other pieces, whatever he want to do with it. But on the other side, if the consumer is slightly into technology and all, he just makes a buy button and he picks it up. So that becomes a very very important challenge, how we connected with the screen over there. So one is that when the even the retailer, when the purchase is happening at the retail level, a lot of online pieces are connected there, so that we can throw more information about the product, because the consumers are looking for more, they are looking for deals as well, but they are looking for the features also. So that becomes very very critical. So tagging your stores from the location where the search is happening. Suppose you do it, whether you do it through the pin code numbers, whether you do through the GPS and all, that all is happening in our category right now. So if I'm sitting in Gurgaon, I have to just press on my website that where is the nearest store. So I tag the store, I go to that store and do it. And trust me, brand is a belief system. So whatever we do, we have to be seamless across. So your belief can't change from place to place. Belief remains the same. So that is the whole thing. So like one brand which I really admire, it comes from the Indian automobile. It is your Bajaj Avenger. So whatever they do offline, whatever they do online, whatever they do on ground, they take the brand experience seamlessly across. Whether it is taking a competition in one of the films where they were doing a Brotherhood Day, whether it was celebrating the Independence Day, which was just a small screen medium, it was not going into the offline space. It was just available on online. But yes, the belief system was portrayed in a very, very nice way. It was communicated well over there. People appreciated that feel. So the challenge for us is that how to keep our belief system intact when we go across screens. Yes, there is technology which will enable it, but how to protect our
See,
belief
the
system is the challenge.
other thing which I'd want to kind of throw open is, when you're talking about your brand, which is also available offline, there's a lot of data that gets collected at third-party retail outlets, right? So how is it that you're aggregating all of that rich information into one common stack? Is it something that you're doing? Is it something that you're aspiring to do? What is it that you're doing? Because ultimately, as Thomas was mentioning, you have a unique identifier in categories like BFSI, banking and financial services, telecom, so on and so forth. What is it that you guys are doing? I mean, do you have that challenge or no?
Yeah, that process is there. It is
Right.
not a challenge.
Yeah.
So there is a government rule which tells that your IMEI numbers needs
Right.
to be recorded, which number has
Correct.
activated it,
Correct.
and that has to be done legally. So I know which phone number from which location has bought me. and which is the other number where they have moved in. If we want to get into that detail, that is all available to us.
So are you leveraging that
Yeah,
at all?
so yeah, we leverage it. We remarket some of this stuff.
Would you
over
want to
there.
kind of share with the audience how is it that you're doing and how is it that you're leveraging that
So,
effectively?
We are not doing it in a very, very big way.
Sure.
Because the data is not that
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So we are just
And also the other challenge is that most of the retail outlets are not owned by your company, right?
no, no,
These are distributor driven and third party retail outlets.
yeah, fair enough. But
Yeah.
see, what is happening that there are two challenges. What you have talked about, that there is a data which is not owned by you, which is available at the retail outlet.
Correct.
Correct. And the second data is that the data available who has activated my handset.
Yeah.
So on the second data piece, my 45% of the purchases are the guys are upgrading onto a phone or they are moving to any other Gioni device. That is the trend which we have seen for certain of our products. If the consumer is looking for a big battery phone,
Mhm.
so he moves to the next battery phone which we are launching. So the same number, we have seen that trend, we have analyzed that trend. So when we do things, we do SMS, we do other thing, we tag them on Facebook through the number and all those things, push the information to them. That all we do over there. The second challenge which you said, that the retailer doesn't give you all the data. Okay, but in the category where we operate, so our 85% of the sales happen through the sales force which we deploy at the shops, and that all is integrated through an application that he has sold this phone, and there are informations like which phone he has changed, okay, which was the old phone, which were the other phones he was looking for. So when he fill up his sales number, because there is an incentive also linked to it, so we get all the information when the consumer is going to buy a model X. So what are the other brands which he has considered and what were the models which were there? So that information all is available.
So that
to us.
offline data is available, which you are leveraging, as I
Yeah,
hear you, effectively
yeah.
to offer a seamless
Yeah,
experience.
but I don't
Right.
feel that it will happen in all the other categories because we ourselves is a screen and there is a government law. So
Absolutely. In fact, that brings me, to the other sort of issue which we were discussing offline with some of our colleagues here is that, data security, data privacy is a big issue, right? And you mentioned that, Cameron. So, how is it that you guys are kind of, what's your perspective? Because ultimately, at the heart of offering this seamless experience is data, consumer data, and people need to be mature. You need to have a basic level of credibility and trust while managing consumer information. Do you think, as marketers, as industry sort of practitioners, we are managing and doing a good job of it?
I think
And maybe the others can.
yeah, I think from a
pitch in with
marketer's
the-
perspective, it comes down to consumer education.
That's a big challenge, right?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and especially when you talk about financial services. But in retail and entertainment, I think that it's usually listed in the end user licensing agreement from a brand that says we're going to leverage this for certain reasons. And as long as the consumers are seeing a benefit of correlating that information and getting that cross screen experience that they're expecting, then brands are winning and the consumers feel comfortable with it. I think the scary piece is what's happening with that data afterwards. Like the way that we treat our clients' data is that the clients own that data 100%. So we collect it, we correlate it to give that single concept of a user across all these different devices. And we allow the brands to then figure out how they want to leverage that through remarketing or through their own engagement.
So you have to definitely win the trust of the consumer for her to or him to share the data.
Yeah, it's up to
And
the
then
brand.
you have to have a high level of governance, self-governance and industry governance as practitioners to ensure that the data is not misused or abused. Vasant, you want to share your perspectives on that?
Yeah, I'll take a slightly different view on this, Subhranshu. Because the way we look at it is data is going to be your single biggest strength today and going forward.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important, whether you're in marketing, whether you're in business, than data. In fact, we call it saying data is the new oil. Data is the next biggest natural resource. Now, what's hidden behind that is like any natural resource, whether it's oil, whether it's energy, whether it's power, it needs to be mined, it needs to be refined. And natural resources are precious, we know that. And therefore, when something is so precious as that, you also need to take care of it, right? Which is, so yes. So, but it's definitely not something you need to be scared of. It's definitely not something you need to look at it in a suspicious manner. On the other hand, you actually need to embrace it,
No, but
right?
it's a challenge nevertheless, right?
It's a challenge, but
How do you
it's
handle that data, and how do you win the trust of the consumer to actually encourage and
so my view on that, Subhranshu, is today, I mean, consumers, to the amount of data each one of us is sharing in the room right now, is so enormous, and you're doing it willingly. Whether it's data that you're sharing on social media, which all of you are tweeting, and please continue to do that, whether it's the location data that you're sharing through all the sensors on your phone, whether it's the amount of data that all your apps are giving out. And I'm sure each one of you have anywhere between 5 to 15 apps that are given. The amount of data that you give out when you activate Google Maps to go from place A to place B, and so on and so forth. All the contracts that you've signed when you've signed on to all your social channels. I mean, the amount of data that is out there, and you do that because you find value in it. You share data with Google because Google Maps helps you to get from place A to place B, because that is what forms the back end for Uber when you book a Uber car.
Great.
Right? So there's value, and it's a value exchange, because at the end of the day, when there's a value exchange and there is a utility, I think it works well.
Thanks. So, till now we've spoken about the fact that we need to have a big vision, Uber vision, which is really the starting point, and define your larger purpose of existence as a brand, which is really the starting point of offering a seamless experience for consumers, right? That's what you started off with. Then we talked about the fact that you need to have unique identifiers which enable you to offer this experience. You talked about online, offline, and you also talked about a few challenges and a few examples. So I think the most important thing which people would want to know from each one of you, and we'll start with you, Vasant, again, is that if you were to crystal ball gaze, I know it's very tough to do that, and we were discussing this offline that, there's nothing such as crystal ball gazing, because if you were to kind of predict the future, who knows, it might be obsolete thanks to people like IBM over the next couple of months, right? But fact is, if you were to really kind of predict, and if you were to kind of really predict what the future holds for all of us as practitioners over the next 12 to 15 months, what are the 2 or 3 key technological trends which are emerging, which will drive this huge shift, which will drive this huge phenomena of brands trying to offer this, ubiquitous seamlessness across screens, online, offline?
Not really a prediction, but I think one of the things that everyone is seeing is that if you believe that data is the way, and we know that data is our next natural resource, then the only way you can make sense of all of this data is by using machine learning or deep learning, which otherwise we know as artificial intelligence or cognitive. And if you want to see that in action, you need to go to the IBM Cognitive Lounge.
So we have a
right?
product pitch here.
So it's not a pitch, it's just to see that it's actually live here. So you don't need to crystal ball gaze, right? It is not about scaring you away. It is about how each of you can actually have a personal assistant or 2 or 3 to work for you. It's the help that you need to augment your own intelligence to make it work. So that's really what I think is going to be the single biggest trend, along with 3D printing and VR and AR and all of those things. But it's AI and AI rules. So.
Okay. What about you, Cam?
Yeah, I'd agree that the data has to be actionable. We're collecting so much data and we're producing so much data that sometimes you can get what I call paralysis from analysis. But you have to understand what you're actually trying to accomplish by collecting that data and make it actionable so the consumer actually buys into the experience. I think that it'll be really interesting. You bring up AR and VR, and you talk about online to offline.
Yep.
I just think of consumer brands and brick and mortars. When you're doing the research on clothes or shoes or electronics, you're refining yourself to some degree, but you still need to go to brick and mortar and get that experience. Like, does that TV actually speak to me when I actually see the picture live, or does that jacket actually feel the way that I want it to feel? So I think it'd be really interesting to see how you crunch all that data, and then when you walk in the store, the sales representative knows that you're already interested in this Sony TV or this Versace jacket or something like that.
Sure.
So I think that would be a really big consumer win. Again, the consumers have to buy into that process, though.
Thanks. Nomit?
So I agree to both of them. So, but there is one thing, that how quickly the technology will allow us to do it in this market particularly is going to make a huge difference in terms of how data is getting consumed, how data is getting utilized, and how data, that from a technology point of view, what all enablement is happening from for the data bit, so that we can make it much more purposeful for for the consumers and use it as a marketer. But trust me, this technology and data is going to make people more lazy.
Interesting. Okay. Thomas?
Okay, so first of all, I think there will be a change in how companies see data. So I see today that a lot of companies have their data owned by an agency, managed by an agency, and so on. So this will change that companies understand, as you mentioned, data is really important and it's probably the money of the next century. That they own that in-house, that they have people, that they build competence in-house to work on that data and make actionable results on that data. And also that companies start understanding that data is not only a thing to optimize their media budgets and squeeze even more out of their clients, that it's something like a relationship, that there has to be an added value for the client, that they are willing to give even more data. And then also that companies probably start exchanging data with the allowance of the client, that they can give a better experience across screens to the user. So as mentioned, the thing that you said, so people currently visit our website or go to our app and they have to type in which destination they want to go to and what kind of hotel they want. So if we could exchange data with an Amazon or something like that, or any local company, that we know already where the person wants to go to and if he wants a wellness hotel or not. So we could probably pre-fill all that information, make it way easier for the client in the future. And the client benefits from that. We benefit as a company from that. The other companies benefit from that because they get data back in exchange, and it makes the decision path and everything way easier. And it's probably really simple to say, but the lazier the client can get and the faster he can go to the result, the more he's willing to give data away.
Great. So lots of data there, a data mesh across categories, across brands, across, so increasing participation of various players, cross industry collaboration, cross industry data exchanges, and ultimately the customer wins and the customer is the winner. Before we wind up, and I think we've kind of just about, done with time here, two or three things that you'd want to leave the audience behind with. What are the two or three things which they probably should be doing as practitioners to offer this seamless, gold standard, seamless experience for their consumers?
Want me to start again? Okay. I just want to highlight something that Thomas said. Firstly, your data is your data. Don't give it away to anyone else, right? You can share it, make use of it, but please, right? And there's a whole new world out there. But just remember about this notion of who about data. The second bit is, and we come back to about screens, and this is probably a comment about what the world would be. You're also beginning to see computing happen with objects that do not have screens, right? And that's a whole new world as well. And you're probably going to see connected devices. Yes, everybody talks about a driverless car, but I think the connected car is very much a reality. So there is, and again, that comes to data, but really, I think we're going to see this very fascinating world of actually experiences right across. And so immerse yourselves in working through about how you will manage this entire ecosystem of customer experience. And finally, coming down to the fact that the North Star in any decision is about how do you manage the customer experience.
Thanks,
So,
Vasant.
Yeah, I'd say understanding that you need to have that system of record. You need to have that cross-device identifier, and that's something that Tune's focusing on is being a marketing stack that not only helps engage users at the top of the funnel, but then re-engage them at the bottom end of the funnel. When you have the ability to do that, you can then win the mobile moments with your consumers. When they're looking at their phone, you know the right time to engage them and what you should be engaging them about. So for me, it's clear. Build a system of record. Don't look at a user as their device. You have to look at across all their different devices, and you need a system that will actually correlate all those. So that's what we're trying to do to help build better marketing and advertising experiences, but then also what I consider better product experiences once you're actually in the store or in the application, making sure that you have the right message to your consumer.
You guys
So I have just to say that use data to add value to your consumers. So whatever data is available, just not use just for sake of using data. If it is adding value to the consumers, then use it, then apply the data science behind it. Otherwise, it is not going to work for anyone.
And too much data can be overwhelming at times. So we need to be wary of that. Okay.
So if I would advise all of you, ask questions and challenge your data and challenge the companies you work with. So there's what I see quite often is you get a nice PowerPoint presentation that says, this is your consumer, this is how he's using your product cross device. Look into that data and see if it really makes sense. So from the last presentation that I've seen, I realized that it was made out of 5% of our data and the 95 other percent were just calculated. So if it's too good to be true, basically it's not true. So ask questions, challenge the people, and see if it really makes sense with all the data that you have, and don't trust your data.
Thanks. I think one more thing before we just kind of end and conclude here is that, and I'd like to share with everyone, is that in each of our organizations, we tend to operate in silos and, verticals. And I think the key really is to work as one team. And this whole cross-functional cohesiveness is really the key to kind of brands successfully delivering this seamless experiences for their consumers outside the ecosystem. Thanks very much, gentlemen. Lovely speaking with you. We are now open for questions. Any questions? We'd request people to kind of, feel free. We have some time for questions, Q&A here. We can discuss them offline as well. So
Somebody ask at least one question. Ask him about Virat Kohli and Oppo at least.
So all those brands that are here, you have your questions answered, right? Nobody felt like they had a cross screen.
so I think we did a
strategy.
great job in terms of sharing
Knocked
our
it out of the park.
experiences. So no questions. Should we conclude? Thank you very much. Oh, I think we have one question there. Yes, please. You need a mic.
Hi, I'm Rajiv from News Corp. My question is about exchange of values, as you mentioned, and that's why users are providing data. But I would also like to ask: is it just the value that user is there for when he is giving the data, or the trust as well? Because so many websites ask you to log in via Facebook or LinkedIn, and I'm sure each one of us think at least for a second, should we do that or not? Because there's so much information we give onto these platforms, and if we trust a third party and we log in via social media, then so much of our personal data goes into them. So how do new businesses earn trust from the users so that they can log in via the social platforms?
So the question is, how do new brands earn the trust of the
So
consumers
that there's a value.
for them to kind of share the data, right? So you want to have a go?
Yeah, I think it's about proving the experience and making sure that the consumer understands that if they're willing to trust you as a brand, you're going to give them a better experience. So there has to be motivation for that, and I think that you see this even in old retail examples. I don't know if it works this way in India, but you walk into the supermarket in the States and you use your loyalty card, and with that you're going to get discount on goods and you're going to get additional coupons emailed to you. And so I think that give and take is really important. I think that Facebook did an amazing job of tricking the consumer that they are not a marketing company. People are willing to give them everything, and then they copy and paste like, you cannot use my information for retargeting. Well, they didn't read the end user licensing agreement that they are a marketing company. So I think that tricking them is not necessarily the right answer, but incentivizing them in some ways is the right answer.
Yeah, there's one of the marketing thought leaders called Gary Vaynerchuk, who's got a fascinating book on this which is titled Jab, 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 Hook. Right? So give, then take.
Thomas, you have a point.
Yeah, you should also make it as easy as possible. So when you're a new brand, probably don't ask for the name, the birth date, the bank details, and everything in the beginning. So think of what you really need from the customer first, and then use the data, give him valuable information for that, and then ask for more by sequence, but don't ask for everything from the beginning on. So only what you really need.
Well, and I'd say be careful on how you're engaging the consumer. The second you get their email address and you flood them with email addresses, you're losing that brand integrity right there. So
you need to be more giving to start with, and
exactly.
less
Make it easy.
Yeah, and make it easy for the consumer. Great.
Somehow investment in the beginning, right?
Great. Yeah.
Hello. My question is regarding something to Noni, that what is the actual impact of experiential technologies using AR and VR for engaging the customers, and something for the for the
Yeah.
Trivago use of virtual reality to actually give an experience to the customer. Where do you see actually brands are actually being helped by these technologies?
See, they add a lot of value. I can't deny it. So wait for next 1.5 year. You will see that there's a lot which is happening in terms of virtual technology in our country. Okay, I will talk from this market point of view. So what was missing in India was the content providers, the guys who can do content for you, which can give that kind of experience. So now that ecosystem is getting developed. So the guys are approaching the brands. So we have met couple of guys. So guys have flown down from other markets to see whether it is possible here or not. So what I see that another year and a half, there will be a lot of things which will be happening on the virtual reality, artificial reality, to give better experience or to consumers make the experience much more enriching for them when they go for a trial or something like that.
I would probably add something to that. So VR is a nice thing, but it's only one of the probably next big things that you should look at. There's so many things out. There's chatbots out. There's, I don't know, wearables, and all of that is somewhere out there. And VR is part of wearables. No one knows if that's the one thing that will be successful in the future, or if it's glasses, which Google looked into. Just try it out, look at it, follow it. But yeah, it's not ready for market probably because it's too expensive. And in that moment, when the customers start adapting that, then you should look more into detail. But it's not only VR that you should focus on.
Great. We have one more question, I think.
Hello.
So last question.
I'm lucky to have the last question, sir. So I hear a lot of emphasis on owning the data, keeping the data within the company. And then I see IBM here, who is managing a lot of it outside of the company, is probably in a private cloud. How do you see this ecosystem being? How would this ecosystem evolve?
So, short answer, and we can talk offline. I think there are two parts to it. It's if it, physically where you or in a technology sense where you have the data, and when you talk about ownership of data, we are talking about who has a rights to the data, right? And that's when I said it's about you having ownership to your data and not giving away those rights. The second part of your point, which is about whether you have it in your own data center or a public cloud, whether the cloud is in India or elsewhere, is an entirely different this thing again, which which is again a function of some regulations, some about how comfortable you are to have it, latency rights, etc. So let's separate the two. I think the point we're making is own your data, and the tech bit of it is an entirely different conversation. Don't mix up the two conversations.
Think of it like money. So you can have your money and you can keep it with yourself. But what you usually do is you give it to a trusted bank. So and when you bring the trusted bank as something like a company like it's IBM, it's Oracle, or whoever, if you trust this company and there's trust towards it that they are under regulations and everything, then you can give that there because it's easier then also to transfer and exchange and so on. So they have that service same as when you transfer money with your bank.
Thank you so much. We'll take the rest of the questions offline, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you once again. Well, yes, you could take your rest of the questions offline with our speakers here. They'll be here for the day. Also, I request everyone to kindly stay back. We have our next panel discussion beginning right here, right now. Also, ladies and gentlemen, as you do visit